Absolute Green Lantern issue 3, Al Ewing writing with JAHNOY LINDSAY on the art. I think that, I really liked the first issue of this, and I think it was intriguing. I think issue 2 continued that. I think this is again the best issue of this book. I think it's been getting better with each issue.
I like this one so much, and the dawning of John Stewart's plan. I feel so dumb that it took me that long to realize why
I kind
the things are able to penetrate.
Yeah,
right?
I kind of pieced it together last issue, actually. Because there was hints in the last issue.
Okay.
And I didn't know for sure, obviously, but this kind of like went down the path that I thought. But the detail that I didn't quite predict was that it didn't have to actually be gold. Like, just even coating it in the color gold would be enough to have some effect. Now, it does seem like actual gold, like, pure gold will have more of an effect. But if you just paint something else, the color gold, it'll still have an effect. So this is kind of going back to the whole idea of yellow being the weakness. It's like a take on that kind of thing.
When he takes the Blue Devil, which I also love seeing Blue Devil, right? And he's like an actual movie character in universe. And that Hal had this collectible of this. Essentially, it's a Funko Pop, right? They call it something else. Can't remember the name that's close. But it's like the gold edition, and it's plated with this gold paint. And he just throws it through the dome, and it cuts through. And I was like, oh, that's cool. Oh, it's because it's like yellow. And just the dawning of it hit. Yeah. I thought that was really well handled.
Yeah, I mean, it is worth mentioning that specifically here it is gold, they keep saying. So it's not just anything vaguely yellow. I think it has to be gold. Now, admittedly, like if you're one little shade off, like, does that still count? There's a lot of pernickety questions you could ask if you wanted to.
And I do love that John's cleaned that up in the mid-2000s. It was like, yes, it's a weakness for unexperienced Lanterns, that once you learn to overcome that power of fear, because he did the whole parallax stuff, it stuff does work on yellow, but it's still a little bit weak to it, too. So I wonder if that's what we're kind of building to, too, that once you have, like, a mastery over the slight or whatever, it won't, it won't be as easy. Right, because it's a person.
I'm not even thinking about that yet, because it's not important yet. It's not like a part of what we're doing.
No, but just with the way that the Green Lantern Corps is being served with this monstrous. Why am I drawing a blank on
Abin Sur?
Abin Sur, yeah, with the monstrous version of him and whatever too. Like there's so much mystery surrounding the Green Lantern Corps, and it's like what's up with this yellow. Right?
You keep saying core. Gold. How do you know it's a core in this case?
True. It might just be him, right?
Yeah, I mean, we don't know what the context is. Like, Green Lantern Corps is something specifically from the regular universe. We have no idea if there's a core here.
True.
So, yeah, I mean, this issue mostly takes place in the back part of the timeline, which is in the town. They're trapped in this, this bubble of green energy. The remains of Guy Gardner are being eaten by vultures, which,
Is it Guy or this is the motor? I thought this was the motorcyclist that hit. They're looking at it on the outside because there's no green tinge to it.
You know what? That makes a bit more sense. I just saw it before because you see it before they start talking about it. I just assumed it was Guy and moved on with my life. I guess Guy's already been eaten.
Only because of something that happens later about the judgment. I think there's more going on there.
Sure. No, you're probably I think you're probably right. But let me joke about that dumb bitch Guy Gardner being dead. Like, they don't need to
get fine. I just
pernickety here.
I'm just saving you the corrections that are bound to come. All right.
So yeah. Anyway, so the last issue ended with John Stewart picking up the ring and kind of like wondering about it, and he's explaining that hey, there's something strange here. They also explain here that people on the outside of the bubble don't see the green bubble. They just kind of get mentally kind of like coerced into like, oh, we'll turn back. We won't drive this way. We'll just turn around. So that's what we see a van do. So they kind of speculate on that a little bit. But John Stewart throws the ring through the dome and it does go through and it's giving him an idea. So he goes to Hal Jordan, but then we cut back to the present day stuff, which is basically just that Hal can't control the Black Hand and ultimately attacks Joe. So we get a bit of an action sequence where she like fights back, and then Hal goes flying out of this diner into like the desert outside. It's a fun,
and we get
it's a fun few panels, I'll say, because you get the big fist hitting the shadow of Hal, and then the wide panel of the beam of him flying away.
Yeah,
It was really good.
so because it seems like the energy that's coming off of his hand in the black hand, it seems more like it's tendrily, right? Like it's crawling around. And then when we see the big force go through it right at the top of that page where she's like pushing and then it makes the fist and it comes through and it just shows like the difference in these two abilities. I think the art really, really is doing some heavy lifting here.
Yeah, and of course there's a moment where, you know, Hal says, "How are you controlling that light?" And she's like, "I don't know how." And then he can control it. And obviously we know that, at least traditionally, the green light is controlled with willpower. Obviously that's not the answer to what Hal's got, because Hal has something else entirely. But I do like that we're kind of like having them sort of touch around this idea that Joe just has the will to control this and wield it. But it's interesting all the same, though. And I did notice that she is indeed wearing a ring where the light seems to be emanating from in one of those panels. So, well, obviously we're building up in the backstory to see how she ends up with that. But, yeah, so that's going on. And then we go back again, and John goes to Joe and says, "Hey, like, if you got your old wedding ring kicking around?" And she's kind of like weirdly like confused as why he would bring this up. It's bringing up painful memories, yada yada. But then we get the scene you were talking about where Hal gives him this stupid gold collectible, and he basically just holds it through the dome and pops it out on the other side. And it's like, hey, and because this is the scene that established this doesn't need to actually be gold. It just needs to be in the color of gold. So it's like, okay, what do we do with actual gold then? And of course he throws the ring, I think it's his grandmother's ring or something like that, and he throws it at the thing, and a hole appears. It disappears quite quickly, but a full-on hole appears in the dome, and they start talking about, hey, is it possible for us to make a hole big enough if we get everything we can that's gold in the town? Can we make a hole for someone to get out and maybe go get help? So I really dug that. Just because it's them being practical, it's them figuring out the rules. This is the sort of thing that, separate from any typical Green Lantern myth, forget Green Lantern as a concept just now. When it comes to movies with horror or science fiction, I always enjoy proactive characters who are trying to figure out the boundaries of this like weird, unique thing they've been confronted with, whether it's something supernatural or something science fiction-y. So Jon Stewart being proactive and trying to figure out the rules and have the characters starting to sort of come on board and work together is kind of exciting to me, and it makes me like the characters more. And then the fact that as soon as they're getting somewhere, immediately Abin Sur's like, hey, Jon Stewart, you're being judged, and disintegrates him. The fact that he's now done this to both John and Guy makes me think that they're probably going to end up becoming back later, right? If it was just Guy, I'd be like, he's gone, he's dead, bye-bye. But now that it's both of them, I'm like, okay, you know what? I think being judged is taking them somewhere for training or something, like, assuming there's a core. There might not be, but I don't think this is death necessarily right now.
No, it's because of the opening page, it's with all the black, and it's that round, almost like a ring, talking to Jon Stewart, and says that he's been not chosen. What's it say? Let me get to that front page again. My iPad is not cooperating. But it says, you must have knowledge to command the flame. You must be without fear, entirely without. And it's just John saying, I know. And so it makes me think that, there's something afoot here.
Yeah.
What were you going to say?
No, sorry. What I was going to say was irrelevant. I figured out my answer before I finished the sentence.
Got you.
No, I forgot about that first page. That first page is quite interesting, which does, because I assumed this blackness though with the ring was more to do with Black Hand, just because of the color scheme, right? But now that I'm looking through all the pages with Hal, there's never any visuals like that with him. However, the one other time in the book where it does appear is when John's explaining like his theories to the other two, Hal and Joe, and he says the substance that turns base metal. He's talking about the Philosopher's Stone. He's talking about alchemy, and he says, "Hey, it's the substance that turns base metal into gold. It can also heal wounds, prolong life, creates what would you call it? An
ever-burning lamp."
No, before that, homunculus, whatever that's pronounced.
Homunculus. Right? So homunculus is like a thing that it's a human-like thing that gets life breathed in, usually made of clay. and stuff like that.
Okay.
You
well, when he says light an ever burning lamp, that's when you get a panel of that white circle on black. And it's almost like if there is like a voice inside like whatever the ring's power is or whatever it is, if there's something in there, it feels like it took notice of him at that point. And it almost sounds like he's talking about like, okay, he's using Philosopher's Stone because it's like a mythological thing he's heard of. But what if he's kind of describing here is the green flame? It's the Green Lantern energy.
Yeah. Because after that, he says it's a symbol of enlightenment. And it says what is base becomes gold through knowledge. Right. And then it just ties that whole thing of gold throughout the whole rest of the issue. But yeah, it almost is like whatever this ring thing is did take notice of him here. I do like, though, how we're getting all these characters that we associate with Green Lantern early on here, right? We got John and Joe and Hal, Guy. They mentioned Todd, and we find out that is Obsidian. I forget what his last name is. But in the regular universe, and that his dad runs the diner, right? And it's Alan. So I do like that they're using all of that type of stuff here and subverting it in certain ways. But it does feel like they're using the community to kind of shore up the Green Lantern story, which I like, and using the Green Lantern characters.
Yeah, I just think it's done a good job of building its own separate mythology, which is why I'm hesitant to even compare anything that it's doing to past Green Lantern stuff or runs or anything that was ever done with the mythology before in the regular universe, because it feels like it's building everything from scratch, beyond just the idea that there's an energy that they can tap into. Like, it just kind of feels like this is from scratch a completely new science fiction take on what Green Lantern even is. But it's using all these characters, like you say, so we're getting this kind of interesting thing where they're all interacting in these different ways. They all know each other. We don't have all of them yet, but we've got a lot of them already in this town. So excited to see where they keep going with this.
The fact that we have Todd Rice here, and he shoots at Abin Sur, and he tells him to be without fear. Now that I think about it, the stuff that's going on with Hal, it seems a lot like Obsidian's power, right? A lot of that shadow stuff. So I'm wondering if that's, we're using the Black Hand iconography, but I'm wondering if it's this, the lack of light, like this void that we traditionally associate with Obsidian. I wonder if that's what they're going for. I mean, Joe's kind of like
they may be mixing
the opposite.
They may be mixing the two, Matt, but I think you're forgetting that Hal did call it the Black Hand. No,
I know, but like for me, Black Hand's all about like the death and stuff, but that's not how this is operating, right?
Oh no, I get it.
Like,
it's
not
different.
even like the.
I'm just saying that like I don't think it's going to turn to just be Obsidian's thing. Like I think maybe they're trying to connect the two together. No.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. It's like if this green is meant to be the light, then that is the absence of light, right? And that just it's playing all with the other Green Lantern themes. You know what I mean? And that didn't dawn on me until right now when, I mentioned that, Todd Rice, that's Obsidian, and he's standing in front of Alan Scott's Atom Bomb Cafe and Diner, right? So, again, it was just more of the Green Lantern stuff being,
And obviously, Todd has really little to do with the Green Lantern Corps in the regular universe, but he is the Golden Age Green Lantern's son, so there is like this connection to part of the mythos. So it is interesting to see them playing with that in a little bit of a different way. But I don't know. It's almost like, maybe... Because it's interesting that Abin Sur does not take Todd, right? He says, judgment is in progress, be without fear, but he doesn't take him, he just disappears. Unlike John and previously Guy, where he, made them disappear. Maybe they're still alive somewhere, maybe they're not, but... I think it was very easy to kind of misread what he was doing to them because of the way he took someone else's hand. But obviously he never took the guy whose hand that he cut off. He just kind of left him there. So, very curious, very curious. Excited to see where we go with all this. Obviously the fact that now John is also gone. So even though he gave them an idea that they might be able to use, there's obviously this fear that, maybe it's hopeless because immediately Abin Sur just showed up and took care of it and we're being kind of held captive under this alien's regime. But of course, the final page, the cliffhanger, is Barry, that's not Barry, say Hal, not Barry, I'm switching characters. Hal is painting bullets gold, which would suggest that he wants to try and kill Abin Sur. So that's a really cool cliffhanger to end this on. I feel like this issue, more than the first two, really felt like it established what the story is right now. Like, I really liked a lot of the things that the first two issues set up, but I think this one, by spending so much time just continuously on the town in the bubble where John's trying to figure things out and they establish some things, and by the end they give Hal this motivation to try and get revenge. I think it really like felt like it's got a solid like ground under its feet now compared to like what it was before, and it feels like it was already interesting. It was already kind of like, you know, it was always very curious about what they were doing with all the various elements. I think this is where it's kind of formed into, oh, I'm actually engaged in the story and I understand what the story is so far. So I think that's cool. I think this has gotten better.
And just how the light is on that last page with Hal as he's painting these bullets gold, right? How the light is, there's this green over him, and then just he's surrounded by the darkness too. Like, it's just very good visual storytelling.
I guess if I was to make a theory right now, I would say that maybe, okay, so let's say Hal kills Abin Sur, which is an interesting twist in what usually happens with Abin Sur. What if the reason why he gets taken over with the Black Hand is because Abin Sur, this entire time up front, is keeping it at bay with his powers because he can, but by killing Abin Sur, it lets that darkness out, and it goes to it goes to Hal. I keep saying Barry for some reason. It goes to Hal, and somehow Joe ends up, you know, with the Green Lantern power. Like, you know, whether or not Abin Sur chooses to give that to her, whether or not she just happens to be there by happenstance and ends up with it, you know, whatever it may be.
I mean, in the traditional origin, right? It's dying Abin Sur bestows this power onto, you know, Hal Jordan. But what if Hal Jordan's causing his death and it gets bestowed to Joe?
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying though. Even the idea that he bestows the power could be changed. Like, I'm like, we can't assume anything. Like, there's so many possibilities as to how it might play out.
Or she takes it, right? Like, she's there.
Yeah, maybe she takes it. Maybe because either she gets the idea, or like I say, maybe she's just there. Like, she's the one that happens to be there, and whether because the ring just wants a new owner or because she decides to take it. What if it's just happenstance? Or does she specifically go out of her way to grab it because she sees what happens to Hal? Or, you know, because, you know, by the time we get to that point, maybe in like 2 issues or whatever it's going to be, there's a possibility that Joe by that point will understand some of this a bit more than we do now. Like, she might have a bit more of an idea that there's two, you know, there's the light and the darkness and one's fighting the other. Maybe she'll feel that she needs to take the green power because she can recognize that this darkness, this Black Hand, is out and needs to be taken care of. That said, though, the way she talks to Hal in the present day stuff doesn't completely indicate that she knows exactly what it is necessarily, but she does seem to know that she needs to try and deal with it and like catch Hal. So, you know, we'll see how that goes. I will say though, the black, like, if Abin Sur's disintegrating of John and Guy isn't killing them, I do think that the Black Hand disintegrating the cop last issue, or in issue 1, whatever that was, I do think that was a death. I think they're gone. But
I agree.
Just a gut feeling more than anything. So there you go. That's very good. That's very good. Like, I think the sequential art's very good. I still obviously don't love necessarily the faces all the time. It's a little bit manga inspired for my my taste, but I can't fault the pacing of it and the way that it tells the story, because that side of it is very good, and I've been saying that since issue 1, so it's very consistent. So I think in terms of the characters finally kind of like putting some pieces together and solving through some of the ideas, I think this issue really like found its footing in a way that it's not even like I was missing it before, but I think now it feels like, oh, it's coming together.
It feels more coherent.
Yeah. So, no, really good stuff. I'm surprised they didn't change it to the Sorcerer's Stone for this issue, though.
No, we're trying to distance from that right now. You know.
All right, what were you rating Absolute Green Lantern?
I'm gonna go straight 8.
I think I'm going with 8.5.